There's one more thing, Carter said. We've received a message from the Andromeda Galaxy. Another species there has detected signs of void swarm activity in the empty space between galaxies. They're asking for help. The room fell silent. The war they thought was over might be starting again, this time on an even larger scale. Chancellor Vextar was the first to speak, and we will help them, together. All in favor of sending an expeditionary force to Andromeda? Carter asked. Every hand, tentacle, and appendage in the room rose in agreement. 2 years later, Kate Williams stood in her office on Unity Station, looking out at the busy traffic of ships coming and going. Human freighters carried goods to alien colonies. Zephyrian crystal ships explored new star systems. Mindari biovessels conducted research in deep space now the galaxy was healing. New worlds were being settled. New technologies were being developed. New friendships were being formed between species that had never worked together before. A soft chime announced a visitor. Kate turned to see a young human woman in a military uniform standing in the doorway. Ambassador Williams? I'm Lieutenant Sarah Davis from the UES Explorer. We're about to depart for Andromeda Galaxy as part of the expedition force. Kate smiled. The expedition to help another galaxy defend against the Void Swarm had become the Alliance's first major joint mission. Ships and crews from every member. Species were taking part. Good luck, Lieutenant. Give my regards to Admiral Chun. Yes, ma'am. Actually, I wanted to thank you. Thank me? For what? For not giving up. When the old council rejected your warning, you could have let them all die. Instead, you helped save the galaxy. Kate thought about that for a moment. That's what humans do, Lieutenant. We help people, even when they don't help us back, even when they don't deserve it. That's what makes us who we are. Lieutenant Davis saluted and left to join her ship. Kate returned to watching the traffic outside her window. Somewhere out there, the UES Explorer and its sister ships were preparing to jump to another galaxy. They would face unknown dangers to help strangers they had never met. It was a very human thing to do. And now, thanks to the Alliance, it was becoming a very galactic thing to do as well. Kate opened her desk drawer and pulled out a small device. It was the same communicator she had used to send the Protocol 7 message that started the war. Now she used it to send a different kind of message to every human settlement in the galaxy. This is Ambassador Kate Williams, she said into the device. 2 years ago, we stood alone against impossible odds. Today, we stand with friends from across the galaxy. Tomorrow, we'll stand with friends from across the universe. The human spirit of cooperation and courage has spread to the stars themselves. She paused, looking out at the ships of a dozen species working together in the space around Unity Station. We offered our hand in friendship once, and it was rejected. We offered it again, and this time it was accepted. That's the difference between conquest and cooperation. That's the difference between an empire and an alliance. And that's why the galaxy is a better place today than it was yesterday. Kate turned off the communicator and smiled. Outside her window, a human transport ship was docking alongside an alien passenger liner. The crews were probably sharing stories and trading cultural gifts. As had become common throughout Alliance space, the galaxy had learned an important lesson from humanity. Sometimes the strongest nations are the ones that help others become strong too. Sometimes the best way to win is to make sure everyone wins together. And sometimes, when you offer your hand in friendship often enough, eventually someone will take it. 6 months after the Battle of Nexus Prime, Kate Williams walked into the rebuilt council chamber for the second time in her life. But everything was different now. The giant room was smaller, rebuilt from the wreckage of the old station. Instead of hundreds of alien species looking down at her, only 30 representatives sat in the simple chairs. These were the survivors. The lucky ones whose worlds had not been consumed by the void swarm. Chancellor Vextar stood as she entered. His blue skin had healed from the battle wounds, but his eyes looked older. The pride that had once filled his voice was gone, replaced by something Kate had never expected to hear from him: respect. "Ambassador Williams," he said, bowing his massive frame. "Thank you for coming." Kate nodded and took her place at the center of the room. This time, no one laughed at the human representative. This time, they listened. "The war is over," she announced. "The last swarm fleet was destroyed 3 days ago at the Battle of Kepler Station." Captain Tony Brown and the UE's victory confirmed that no enemy ships escaped. Relief filled the chamber. For 6 months, the survivors had lived in fear that more swarm ships would appear from dark space. Now they could finally start to rebuild. "But we have decisions to make," Kate continued. "The old empire is gone. Half the galaxy is empty space where planets used to be. We can either fight over what's left, or we can work together to build something better." Elder Thesha of the telepathic mind diary leaned forward. Her large black eyes studied Kate's face. "What do humans propose?" Kate had prepared for this question for weeks. "We propose the Galactic Alliance, a partnership of equals where every species has a voice, regardless of how advanced their technology is or how old their civilization is. No more empire, no more ruling from the top down. We make decisions together." General Kirian's crystal skin chimed as he shifted in his seat. "And who would lead this alliance?" "No one," Kate said simply. "And everyone. We elect representatives. We vote on important decisions. We share our knowledge and resources freely." The aliens looked uncomfortable. For thousands of years, they had lived under the rule of the strong. The idea of true democracy was strange to them. Chancellor Vextar spoke carefully. "Humans saved. You saw. By right of conquest, you could claim the entire galaxy. Why offer partnership instead?" Kate smiled. "Because that's not who we are. We don't want to rule over others. We want to work with them." The debate lasted for hours. Some aliens worried that humans would become too powerful. Others feared that smaller species would be ignored. But gradually, the survivors came to understand what Kate was offering: a chance to start over, to build a better galaxy based on cooperation instead of conquest. The vote was unanimous. The Galactic Alliance was born. 3 months later, Admiral Lisa Chun stood on the bridge of the new flagship East Harmony, watching the first joint human-alien fleet conduct training exercises in the asteroid belt around Saturn. The sight filled her with pride and wonder. Human ships flew alongside crystal vessels from the Zephyrian survivors. Mindari bioships moved in formation with Earth's metal destroyers. Engineers from a dozen species worked together to create new technologies that combined the best of all their knowledge. "Admiral," reported Lieutenant Commander Jerry Webb from the communications station, "the Vorthan delegation is requesting permission to join the exercises." Chun nodded. Even the proud Vorthans, who had considered themselves the natural rulers of the galaxy, were learning to work with others. Their ancient wisdom combined with human adaptability was already producing amazing results. "Grant permission, and remind all ships to follow the new tactical protocols." The new protocols were based on lessons learned fighting the swarm. Instead of rigid formations and predictable strategies, the Alliance fleet used controlled chaos. Every ship captain was encouraged to think creatively and adapt to changing situations. It was a very human way of fighting, and it was spreading throughout the Alliance. Captain Tony Brown, the hero of the final battle against the swarm, commanded a mixed crew aboard the destroyer UE's Phoenix. His first officer was a Mindari telepath named Sen. His weapons officer was a Zephyrian crystal singer called Harmonics of Thunder. His engineer was a human woman named Nancy Clark, who had learned to work with alien technology. "Captain," Sen said, his thoughts touching Brown's mind gently, "the Zephyrian ships are having trouble with the chaos maneuvers. Their crews think." Too logically, Brown smiled. This was a common problem. Tell Harmonix to have his people try thinking like humans for a few minutes. Be random. Be unpredictable. Make mistakes on purpose. The telepathic alien's confusion was obvious even without mind-reading abilities. Make mistakes? On purpose? Sometimes the best way to win is to do something so stupid that your enemy never sees it coming, Brown explained. It's a very human concept. Within an hour, the Zephyrian crews were performing chaos maneuvers as well as any human pilot. They had learned to embrace controlled randomness, something that would have been impossible under the old Empire's rigid thinking. On the rebuilt Nexus Prime Station, now renamed Unity Station, President John Carter met with the leaders of the Alliance. The station had become the new capital of the galaxy, a symbol of cooperation and hope. "The reconstruction reports look good," Carter said, reviewing data on a holographic display. "We've resettled 40 million refugees on new worlds. The terraforming projects are ahead of schedule." Dr. Grace Murphy, now head of the Alliance Science Council, added her own report. "The psychological studies of swarm remnants have given U.S. valuable insights. We're developing new defenses in case anything like them ever appears again." "And the exploration missions?" asked Elder Thesha, who now served as the Alliance's diplomatic coordinator. "Excellent progress," replied Commander Beth Stone, recently promoted to head of Frontier Operations. "We've made contact with 17 new species in the former Outer Rim territories. All of them have requested membership in the Alliance." Carter looked around the conference room at the faces of his colleagues. Human and alien working together. As equals, it was what Kate Williams had dreamed of when she first addressed the old Galactic Council. The U's final warning dropped out of faster-than-light speed at the edge of the Nexus. Prime system like a metal mountain falling from the sky. Captain Ryan Mitchell stood on the bridge, looking at the scene of destruction before him. Nexus Prime had been the most important place in the galaxy. The neutral station where all alien species met to trade and talk. Now it was under attack. The great ring-shaped station, once home to 50 million beings, was breaking apart. Pieces of metal and glass spun away into space as the void swarm, tore apart with tentacles that reached across miles. "Captain," said Lieutenant Amy Foster from the sensor station, "I count 300 enemy ships around the station. They've got it completely surrounded. Any survivors? Some life signs in the core sections. But the power is failing. Maybe 6 hours before life support goes down completely." Mitchell nodded. 6 hours to save millions of aliens who had rejected humanity's help just months ago. 6 hours to prove the humans were better than their enemies thought. "Signal the fleet," he ordered. "Attack formation, Charlie. Remember, nothing predictable. Keep them guessing." Behind the final warning, the human fleet spread out across space. 300 ships of different sizes and shapes. They didn't look like a proper military formation. Some ships hung back while others rushed forward. A few spun in circles. One group flew upside down. Compared to the others' it looked like chaos. That was exactly what Mitchell wanted. The swarm noticed them immediately. Dark ships that looked like giant sea creatures turned away from the station to face this new threat. They had learned to expect organized attacks from fleets that moved in neat formations. They had learned to counter every standard military tactic in the galaxy. They had never seen anything like the human fleet. The battle began when the UES Wildfire, a small destroyer commanded by Captain Lisa Park, flew straight at the biggest swarm ship while playing loud rock music on all radio frequencies. The enemy vessel tried to adapt to the sound waves, changing its surface to absorb the music. While it was distracted, the wildfire fired a full spread of chaos rounds. The swarm ship exploded in a shower of sparks and organic matter. First blood. To humanity, Mitchell said with satisfaction. But the swarm learned fast. Within minutes, they had adapted to chaos rounds, developing armor that could handle random attacks. Human weapons that had worked perfectly a few minutes ago now bounced off enemy hulls like toy bullets. Mitchell had expected this. All ships switched to Phase 2 weapons. Across the fleet, human ships opened panels in their hulls and deployed weapons that had never been tested in real combat. The U's thunder fired bolts of pure gravity that crushed swarm ships like tin cans. The UE storm released clouds of microscopic robots that ate through alien armor from the inside. The UE's lightning shot beams of weaponized music that made enemy vessels vibrate themselves apart. But the strangest weapon belonged to Dr. Grace Murphy aboard the research ship UE's Breakthrough. She had spent 3 years developing something the aliens would never expect, a psychological virus. Deploying the Doubt Bomb, she announced over the radio. The weapon looked like a simple missile, but it carried something more dangerous than explosives. It carried ideas. Human ideas about individuality and free will, packaged in a form that could infect the swarm's hive mind. The missile hit the largest enemy ship and released its payload. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the swarm ships began to slow down. Some stopped moving entirely. Others started flying in random directions. "It's working," Murphy said in amazement. "They're beginning to think as individuals instead of as a group. They don't know how to handle it." The confusion lasted only a few minutes, but it was enough. The human fleet pressed their advantage, tearing into the disorganized enemy formations. Swarm ships that had been perfectly coordinated a moment ago now bumped into each other or fired at empty space. Captain Mitchell saw his chance. All ships, concentrate fire on the command organism, that big ugly thing in the center. The command organism was a massive bioship, larger than some moons. It pulsed with dark energy and controlled the swarm's movements through some kind of organic network. If they could destroy it, the entire enemy force might fall apart. The final warning led the attack, its experimental weapons tearing chunks out of the command ship's hull. Other human vessels followed, pouring fire into the massive target. But the enemy was fighting back now, adapting to each new human tactic within minutes. "Captain," Amy reported, "enemy forces are reorganizing. They're learning to counter our psychological warfare." Mitchell could see it happening. The swarm ships were moving in formation again, their temporary confusion wearing off. Soon they would adapt to everything the humans could throw at them. He made a decision that shocked his crew. "All power to engines," he ordered, ramming speed. "Sir?" asked his first officer, Commander Tony Williams. "That's suicide." "Maybe," Mitchell said, "but it's also the one thing they can't adapt to. They can't learn to stop a 2-kilometer warship from crashing into them at full speed." The final warning accelerated toward the command organism like a metal comet. Enemy fire rained down on its hull, but the ship's adaptive armor absorbed most of the damage. Behind them, the rest of the human fleet followed Mitchell's lead, each ship picking a target and preparing to ram it. "Sir," Amy said quietly, "escape pods are ready." "No," Mitchell said firmly. "We finish this together." The final warning struck the command organism at nearly the speed of light. The impact lit up space like a new star. The massive bioship convulsed as human weapons detonated inside its body. For a moment, the entire swarm stopped moving. Then, the command organism began to die. Its control over the other ships failed. Across the battlefield, enemy vessels spun out of control or simply went dark. Some exploded. Others drifted away into space like dead whales. The remaining human ships moved quickly to rescue survivors from Nexus Prime. Transport beams pulled alien refugees from the dying station while human engineers worked to stabilize the core sections. Admiral Lisa Chun, commanding the battle from her flagship UES Indomitable, received reports from across the fleet. Casualty report? We lost 47 ships, reported her communications officer, including the final warning. But we saved the station and eliminated the entire enemy force. Chun nodded sadly. Captain Mitchell had been a good man and a fine officer, but his sacrifice had won them the battle and proved something important to the galaxy. On the dying Nexus Prime station, Chancellor Vexstar crawled through collapsed corridors toward the communication center. His 4 arms were injured, and his blue skin was covered in cuts, but he was alive. Barely he reached the emergency transmitter and activated it with shaking hands. The message would go out across the galaxy to every surviving alien fleet and colony. This is Chancellor Vexstar of the Galactic Council, he said into the microphone. His voice was weak but clear. The human fleet has saved Nexus Prime. Repeat, the humans have saved us. He paused, thinking about what to say next. A few months ago, he had dismissed humanity as primitive and weak. Now they had sacrificed themselves to save alien lives. All remaining Imperial forces are ordered to cooperate fully with human fleet commanders. They are our allies now, and perhaps they always should have been. The message spread across the galaxy at light speed. In hidden bunkers and fleeing ships, the survivors of the Galactic Empire heard their leader's words. Some felt shame for how they had treated humanity. Others felt hope for the first time in weeks. Back on Earth, President Carter received the battle reports in his underground command center. The victory at Nexus Prime was important, but it was just one battle. The swarm was still out there, still consuming worlds and fleets. What's our next move? Asked Admiral Chun over the quantum communicator. Carter looked at the star map showing enemy positions across the galaxy. There were still thousands of swarm ships scattered among the outer worlds, and more were arriving from dark space every day. We keep fighting, he said simply. We save who we can. We protect what we must. And we show the galaxy what humans are really made of. Dr. Grace Murphy's psychological virus had given them a new weapon against the swarm's hive mind. The chaos. Tactics had proven effective against their adaptation abilities. And most importantly, humanity had shown that they would fight for others, even when those others had rejected them. The war was far from over, but for the first time since it began, the galaxy had hope. And that hope had a name: humanity. The first sign was silence. Captain Sam Parker stood on the bridge of his ship, the U's Defiance, staring at the communication screen. For 3 days, they had been trying to contact Kristen Prime, the biggest Zephyrian colony in the Outer Rim. 10 billion crystal-skinned aliens lived on that world. Now there was nothing. No radio signals. No light from the cities. No ships coming or going. Captain, said Lieutenant Jenny Brooks from her station, long-range sensors are picking up movement. In the Kristen system. What kind of movement? Unknown, sir. The readings don't match anything in our databases. Parker had been expecting this. Kate Williams had warned them 2 months ago that the swarm was coming early. Earth's deep space sensors had tracked the enemy changing course, moving faster than predicted. But knowing it was coming and seeing it happen were 2 different things. Set course for Kristen Prime, Parker ordered. Maximum speed. Sir, that's alien territory. If they detect us... Lieutenant, I don't think the Zephyrians are going to be worrying about trespassers anymore. The Defiance jumped to faster than light speed. The journey took 18 hours. When they dropped back into normal space at the edge of the Kristen system, Parker's crew saw something that would give them nightmares for years. Kristen Prime was gone. Not destroyed. Gone. Where a planet had been, there was only empty space and a cloud of dark particles. The system's 3 moons had vanished too. Even the asteroid belt looked smaller, like something had been eating the rocks. "Dear God," whispered Communications Officer Mike Davis. Then they saw the ships. At least, Parker thought they were ships. They looked more like giant squids made of black metal and flesh. They moved through space without any visible engines, twisting and turning like living things. Some were as big as skyscrapers. Others stretched for miles. "Captain," Jenny said, her voice shaking, "I count over 2,000 enemy vessels. They're spreading out through the system, consuming everything." Parker watched the alien swarm work. They moved with perfect coordination, like parts of a single giant organism. Some ships attacked the remaining space stations. Others gathered around the system star, doing something that made the sun flicker and dim. "They're eating the star," Dr. Emma White said from the science station. "Somehow they're draining its energy." "All stop," Parker ordered. "Cut all power. Except life support. Maybe they won't notice us." But it was too late. Several of the swarm ships had already turned toward them. They moved fast, much faster than anything that size should be able to move. "Red alert," Parker said. "All hands to battle stations. This is not a drill." The first enemy ship reached them in minutes. It was the size of a city block, covered in what looked like black tentacles. As Parker watched, the tentacles reached out toward his ship. "Fire all weapons," he ordered. The Defiance's laser cannons fired bright beams of energy at the alien ship. The beams hit the target and disappeared. The enemy vessel absorbed the energy completely, like a sponge soaking up water. "Lasers have no effect," reported Weapons Officer Carl Stone. Switching to missiles. The nuclear missiles hit the alien ship and exploded in brilliant flashes. For a moment, Parker thought they had won. Then the smoke cleared. The enemy was still there, completely undamaged. "It adapted," Dr. White said in amazement. "The ship's surface changed to absorb the blast. I've never seen anything like it." More swarm ships were coming. The Defiance was surrounded. "Sir," Jenny said, "they're trying to get inside our ship. Something is cutting through the hull." Parker made a decision that saved his crew's lives. Instead of fighting normally, he did something crazy. "Carl, load the chaos rounds." "Sir, you heard me. Fire the chaos rounds." The chaos rounds were an experimental weapon that Earth scientists had developed just for this war. Each shell contained random elements that changed every few seconds. One moment it might be an explosive. The next moment it could be acid, then poison gas, then electricity. Even the humans firing them didn't know what they would do. The first chaos round hit an enemy ship and turned into a cloud of metal-eating bacteria. The alien vessel's armor began dissolving. Before it could adapt, the second round hit and released a burst of electromagnetic energy that fried its control systems. "It's working," Carl shouted. "They can't adapt fast enough." But Parker knew. They were still outnumbered. Emergency jump. "Get us out of here." The Defiance escaped, but barely. As they jumped to faster-than-light speed, Parker watched the swarm continue its work. In a few hours, the entire Kristen system would be consumed. "Send a message to Earth," Parker ordered. "Tell them the swarm is here. And tell them the Zephyrians were wrong about everything." 3 star systems away, Commander Beth Stone received Parker's warning on the colony world of Haven's Edge. She had been expecting this moment for months. Her people were ready. The swarm arrived at Haven's Edge 12 hours later. Stone watched. From the command center, as the dark ships dropped out of faster-than-light speed, like sharks smelling blood in the water. "All civilians are in the shelters," reported Major Dan Carter. "Defense platforms are online. Good, Stone said. Now let's show these things how humans fight. The swarm attacked exactly as Stone had predicted. They came straight at the planet, in a tight formation, confident that they could consume everything quickly. They had learned to expect fear and panic from the species they attacked. Instead, they got a surprise. The first wave of swarm ships hit what looked like the planet's orbital defense platforms. But the platforms weren't really platforms. They were bombs. Huge, powerful bombs that had been disguised to look harmless. The explosions lit up space like new stars. 50 swarm ships vanished in the first few seconds. The survivors tried to adapt, changing their formations and defenses. But Stone was ready for that too. Phase 2, she ordered. Hidden missile launchers all over the planet fired at once. But these weren't normal missiles. They were filled with the same chaos rounds that had saved Captain Parker. Each one did something different and unpredictable. Some released clouds of nanobots that ate alien ship hulls. Others fired bursts of gravity waves that crushed enemy vessels. A few contained viruses designed to attack organic components. And some just exploded in random colors and patterns that confused the swarm sensors. "They're retreating," shouted Lieutenant Bob Hayes from the sensor station. Stone watched the swarm ships pull back, regrouping outside the planet's gravity well. She knew this was just the first round. They would be back, and next time they would be ready for chaos rounds. "Begin evacuation," she ordered. We bought ourselves some time, but not much. As the transport ships lifted off carrying the last civilians from Haven's Edge, Stone sent a message to Admiral Chun on Earth. First contact successful. Enemy can adapt to any consistent strategy, but random tactics confuse them. Recommend full chaos protocol for all fleet operations. Meanwhile, in the core systems of the galaxy, the Galactic Empire was learning the same hard lesson. Their fleets met the swarm in massive battles that lit up entire sectors. The aliens fought bravely with their advanced weapons and ancient tactics. Lost every single battle. General Kirian's crystal ships were dissolved by swarm acid. Elder Thish's telepathic warriors found their mental powers turned against them. Chancellor Vextar's mighty dreadnoughts were torn apart by their own weapons after the swarm learned to copy and improve everything they saw. In the space of 1 week, the Galactic Empire lost half its territory and 3/4 of its fleet. The survivors fled toward the core worlds, sending desperate messages, asking for help from anyone who would listen. Some of those messages reached Earth. President Carter read the reports in his underground bunker. The aliens who had called humans primitive were begging for assistance. The empire they had ruled for 50,000 years was falling apart in days. "Sir," Admiral Chun said quietly, "our scouts report that human colonies are holding better than alien worlds. The enemy seems confused by our tactics." Carter nodded. "They've never fought anyone like us before. Every other species in the galaxy thinks the same way. Logical, predictable, efficient." He smiled grimly. "Humans are none of those things." "Orders, sir?" Carter looked at the star map, showing the swarm's advance. Soon they would reach the core worlds where billions of aliens lived. Aliens who had rejected humanity's warning and friendship. He made the decision it would define humanity's place in the galaxy forever. "Launch the fleet," Carter said. "All ships. Full combat deployment." "Sir, they didn't help us. They called. U.S. primitive." "I know," Carter said. "But that's what makes us different from them. We help people even when they don't deserve it. That's what makes us human." Admiral Chun saluted. "I'll send the order immediately." In space around Earth's moon, 300 human warships powered up their engines and prepared for the greatest battle in galactic history. President John Carter sat in a chair made of metal and leather, deep under the ground beneath Denver. The room had no windows. Thick concrete walls kept out everything from the world above. Red lights blinked on machines that hummed quietly in. The corners. This was the most secret place on Earth. The message from Kate had arrived 3 hours ago. Just 2 words, but they changed everything. Protocol 7 meant the aliens had said no. It meant Earth was alone. It meant war was coming. "Show me the fleet," Carter said to the woman standing beside him. Admiral Lisa Chun pressed buttons on a control panel. The wall in front of them turned into a giant screen. It showed space around Earth's moon. But this was not the empty space. Most people thought it was. Ships floated there. Hundreds of them, big ones and small ones. All of them built in secret over the past 5 years. 312 vessels ready for combat, Chun said. Her voice was calm, but Carter could see worry in her eyes. The shipyards finished the last one yesterday. Dr. Alex Turner stepped forward from the shadows. He was a thin man with gray hair who had spent his whole life studying alien technology. The new weapons are installed on all ships. The armor. Plating uses our latest designs. Each ship can change its configuration during battle. Carter looked at the ships on the screen. They looked different from anything he had seen before. Where alien ships were smooth and curved, human ships had angles and edges. Where alien ships were beautiful, human ships looked dangerous. "Tell me about the Void Swarm again," Carter said. Turner pulled up new pictures on the screen. Dark shapes moved through space like oil spreading through water. They consume everything organic. Metal, rock, even energy gets absorbed and converted. They learn from every attack. Traditional weapons become useless after the first few shots. But not our weapons, Chun said. No, Turner smiled for the first time in weeks. Our weapons are different. They change. Every shot is random. The swarm cannot predict what we will do, because we do not know ourselves what we will do. Carter stood up and walked to the screen. He put his hand against the glass, touching the image of the fleet. "How many people are we evacuating from the outer colonies?" 40 million so far, Chun answered. "We told them it was a military exercise. Most believed us. The ones who asked questions were told the truth. And they are helping? Every single one. No arguments, no panic. They trust us." This was what made Carter proud to be human. When times got hard, people came together. They did not run away or hide. They helped each other. The door to the room opened. A young man in a military uniform walked in. "Sir, Captain Mitchell is here for briefing. Send him in." Captain Ryan. Mitchell entered the room. He was tall and had scars on his hands from the colonial wars 10 years ago. He had fought pirates and rebels in the outer system. Now he would fight something much worse. "Captain," Carter said, "your ship is ready?" "The final warning is the best vessel humans have ever built," Mitchell said. 2 kilometers long. Armor that can change density during battle. Weapons that fire everything from plasma bolts to gravity bombs. And an AI that thinks like a human, instead of following programs. Can it win against the swarm? Mitchell thought for a moment. One ship? No. But the fleet working together? Maybe. We fight differently than anyone else in the galaxy. That might be enough. Carter nodded. He had made his decision. Admiral Chun, begin Phase 1. All civilian populations move to fortified worlds immediately. Military families get priority evacuation to Earth. Yes, sir. Dr. Turner, are the secret bases ready? All 17 hidden facilities are operational. Weapons, supplies, and personnel are in place. Even if Earth falls, the resistance can continue for years. Captain Mitchell, take the final warning to the Outer Rim. Begin training exercises. With the fleet, I want our people ready for anything. Understood, sir. Carter looked around the room at these three people. They had worked for 5 years to prepare for this day. Now it was time to find out if it was enough. "There is one more thing," he said. "The aliens think we are primitive. They think our technology is simple. They are wrong, but we will let them keep thinking it. When the swarm comes, we want everyone to be surprised by what humans can do." On the moon, Captain Beth Stone watched the last transport ship leave the new Texas colony. 3 million people had lived here among the red rocks and purple plants. Now it was empty except for defense platforms and automated systems. Stone had grown up on New Texas. Her parents had been among the first settlers. She knew every canyon and mesa on this world. In 6 months, it might all be gone, eaten by creatures. From the dark space between stars, her radio crackled. "Commander Stone, this is Orbital Command. The evacuation is complete." "Copy that," she said. "Begin Phase 2. Activate the hidden sensors and start building the trap." Around the planet, machines came to life. They had been buried under the ground for 2 years, waiting for this moment. Now they began building things that looked like ordinary buildings and roads. But they were not ordinary. They were weapons. Stone looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, Kate Williams was probably flying back to Earth in her diplomatic ship. The ambassador had done her job. She had tried to make peace. But the aliens had chosen pride over wisdom. "This is Commander Stone to all defense stations," she said into her radio. "The enemy is coming. We do not know when. We do not know how many. But we know they will come. And when they do, we will show them what humans are made of." Back on Earth, President Carter made one final decision. He activated the quantum communicator that could reach every human. Settlement in the galaxy instantly. His face appeared on screens in space stations, colony ships, and frontier outposts. Miners on asteroids stopped working to listen. Soldiers on patrol ships gathered around their communication systems. Families in their homes sat down to hear what their leader had to say. "My fellow humans," Carter began. "Today we learned that we stand alone in the galaxy. We offered friendship to the alien empires. We warned them of a terrible threat. They rejected us. They called us primitive and weak." He paused, looking directly into the camera. "They are wrong. We are not primitive. We are not weak. We are human, and that means we never give up. We never abandon our friends. We never stop fighting for what is right." The president's voice got stronger. "As of today, Earth declares independence from all alien authority. We will defend ourselves. We will defend our colonies. And if necessary, we will defend the galaxy itself, even from those who rejected our help." He stood up from his chair. Behind him, the flag of Earth hung on the wall. Blue and green with white stars, representing all the worlds where humans had made their homes. "The enemy is coming. But we are ready. We have built ships they cannot imagine. We have developed weapons they have never seen. Most importantly, we have something they will never understand. We have each other." Carter's final words echoed across human space. "To our enemies, we say this: you had your chance for peace. You chose war instead. Now you will learn why humans survived when our own planet tried to kill us for millions of years. We adapt, we endure, and we never, ever surrender." The message ended. Across the galaxy, 40 billion humans began preparing for the greatest battle in their history. Kate Williams stood in the middle of the biggest room she had ever seen. The walls went up so high that she could barely see the top. Strange lights floated in the air without any wires or chains holding them up. All around her sat creatures that looked like they came from nightmares and dreams. She had traveled for 6 months to get here. Earth's first ambassador to the galaxy. Her hands shook a little as she looked at the alien faces staring back at her. Some had too many eyes. Others had no eyes at all. The tall ones with crystal skin looked down at her like she was a bug. The small gray ones with big heads whispered to each other without moving their mouths. "Speak, human," said a voice that sounded like rocks grinding together. Kate looked up at the speaker. He was huge, maybe 10 feet tall, with dark blue skin. And 4 arms. Golden rings covered his neck and wrists. This was Chancellor Vextar, the ruler of the Galactic Empire. Kate cleared her throat. Her voice echoed in the giant room. "Thank you for letting me speak to the Council. I come with an important message from Earth. Some of the aliens made noises that might have been laughter. Others just stared at her with cold eyes." Kate had practiced this speech 1,000 times, but now the words felt heavy in her mouth. "My people have been watching space for a long time," she said. "We built stations far from our world to look at the stars. 3 months ago, our sensors found something terrible coming toward us." She pressed a button on the small device in her hand. A picture appeared in the air above her head. It showed dark space with tiny dots of light that were stars. But there was something else. A black cloud that seemed to eat the light around it. "This is the Void Swarm," Kate said. "They are not from our galaxy. They come from the empty space between galaxies. They eat everything, planets, stars, entire solar systems. And they are coming here." The room got very quiet. Kate could hear her own heart beating. Then Chancellor Vextar made a sound like a mountain falling down. He was laughing. "You dare come before us with fairy tales?" He said, "We have ruled this galaxy for 50,000 years. We have seen every threat, faced every enemy. What could a species that just learned to leave their own planet possibly know that we do not?" A creature that looked like a walking tree leaned forward. Its voice sounded like wind through leaves. "Human sensors are primitive. They probably detected a comet or space dust." Kate felt anger rising in her chest, but she kept her voice calm. "Our sensors are more advanced than you think. We have been watching you for 20 years before we made contact. We know about your wars with the rebel worlds. We know about the plague that killed billions on Centauri Prime. We saw it all, and you never knew we were there." This made some of the aliens look uncomfortable. A few whispered to each other in languages that sounded like music or static. "The swarm will reach the outer colonies in 2 years," Kate continued. "Maybe less. They learn fast. Every weapon you use against them, they figure out how to use against you. Every defense you build, they find a way around it. The only way to stop them is to work together." General Kyrian of the crystal-skinned people stood up. His body made musical sounds as he moved. "Even if this threat exists, what could humans possibly offer? Your ships are barely faster than light. Your weapons are chemical explosives and metal projectiles. You are children playing with toys." Kate had expected this. She pressed another button on her device. The picture changed to show a human ship. It looked different from the sleek alien vessels she had seen. It was rougher, with thick armor and strange angles. "This is the U-East Defender," she said. "It destroyed a Zephyrian battlecruiser in the Outer Rim last year when your people tried to claim our colony world of New Haven." The room exploded in angry voices. General Kyrian's crystal skin turned bright red. "Impossible. No human ship could defeat our technology." "Your people attacked our civilian transport," Kate said, her voice getting stronger. "The Defender was escorting it. Your captain demanded surrender. Our captain refused. The battle lasted 12 minutes. Your ship was disabled. We let your crew go home with a message." She looked around the room at all the alien faces. Some looked angry. Others looked worried. A few looked interested. Humans fight differently than you do, Kate said. We adapt, we change. We never give up. The swarm is coming whether you believe it or not. When it arrives, you will need every ally you can get. Elder Vesha of the Gray Aliens touched Kate's mind with her telepathic powers. Kate felt the alien thoughts poking at her memories, trying to find lies or fear. But Kate had trained for this. She opened her mind and let the alien see everything. The sensor data, the meetings on Earth, the fear in the eyes of the scientists. Who first spotted the swarm? Vesha pulled back quickly. Her big black eyes went wide. She speaks truth about the detection. But the fear ... clouds judgment. Humans panic easily. This is not reliable intelligence. Kate felt her last hope slipping away. She had one more card to play. We offer full partnership, she said. Our technology combined with yours. Our tactics with your weapons. Together we might have a chance. Chancellor Vexstar waved one of his 4 hands. Enough. We have heard this human's warning. All in favor of investigating this supposed threat? Only 3 aliens raised their hands or tentacles or whatever they used to vote. The rest sat silent. All posed. Most of the room voted against her. Kate felt sick to her stomach. The council has decided, Vexstar said. We will not waste resources chasing shadows reported by a species that has existed in space for barely 50 years. This session is ended. Kate looked around the room one more time. Some aliens looked sorry for her. Others looked relieved. Most just looked bored. She walked toward the exit, her footsteps echoing in the huge chamber. Just before she reached the door, she stopped and turned around. Her voice carried across the room, strong and clear. We tried to warn you. We offered to fight beside you. Remember that when they come. Outside the council chamber, Kate pulled out a small communicator. She pressed a single button and spoke 2 words, Protocol 7. The message would take 3 hours to reach Earth. By then, everything would change.